Hey guys, how we doing? Welcome to the weekly roundup. It is Friday, June the 7th, 2024, and as always, plenty to talk about in the boxing world, both here in Australia and overseas. Let's start first off with the Australian scene and Skye Nicolson, the WBC female featherweight champion, 10-0. She'll make the first defence of her title against Dana Vargas, who's 18-1. That fight will take place on July 13 of this year at the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia. Now, that was supposed to be the main support to the Boots Ennis Cody Crowley fight. Now, that fight has been cancelled due to Cody Crowley failing an eye exam. He did have an operation, and that fight, he has been examined and has been ruled ineligible to fight Boots Ennis on July 13. The good news is there will be another opponent announced very, very soon. So at least we'll have Boots Ennis fighting someone. Let's hope it's I think someone a little bit more credentialed than Cody Crowley, but we'll see what they come up with that one. But big opportunity for Skye Nicolson, who does tend to fight all over the world, doesn't she? She's fought in too many countries to probably rattle off at the moment. But in her 10 fights, I think she's fought in about half a dozen different countries. So first defence, big stage, and another city to tick off, Philadelphia. So I look forward to that one. The next Premier Boxing Series event has been announced July 20th at the Southport Sharks in Queensland. And this will be a really, really good fight, I think. Jalen Tate, 15-0. He'll fight Ibrahim Abdullah, 16-2 for the IBF Australasian 135-pound title. Now, Jalen Tate coming off a 10-round decision win over Alexander Espinoza back in March. Balla coming off a 10-round upset win over Yusuf Dib back in December 2023. So it should be a really good fight, this one. Jalen Tate, one of the hottest prospects in Australian boxing. Ibi Balla, the former Olympian. He did retire shortly. He was not for a short time. He was knocked out for the second time back in 2018. Came back, had a couple of comeback fights, and then had that big win over Dib in December. So he's back on track. And for the IBF Australasian title, who knows what might happen for both these guys if they win that fight. So looking forward to that one. On the undercard of that, Dylan Biggs makes his long-awaited return. Of course, after that loss to Nikita Tszyu, he's 10-1. He'll fight Marcus Haywood, who's 9-6-2, the Kiwi. That's at middleweight. Also on that card, Joshua Antes, 4-0, will fight Cody Beacon, 6-2 at middleweight as well. And Rocky Ogden will seek redemption against Cheng Yang at 126, or the featherweight limit. Ogden, 6-1, was stopped in an upset last time out to Yang, who's 7-4. So this is his chance to get revenge. There is another PBS fight before this one, though. It's June 19 in Melbourne at the Melbourne Pavilion. That is Team Alice promoting that event. Mitch Leake, 10-0. He'll fight Jack Brubaker, 18-5-2. For the Australian 160 or middleweight title. And on the undercard, again, should be a really good fight. Lucas Miller, 11-6-2. He'll fight Matt Sheehan, 10-2 for the Australian light heavyweight or 175-pound title. So a really good month of boxing, or a couple of months worth of boxing coming up there here in Australia. Another bit of news to hand. It hasn't really been made public just yet, but I have it on very, very good authority that Michael Zarafa has been released by PBC after that second round stoppage loss to Erislandy Lara in Las Vegas on the Tszyu Fundora undercard. Michael was signed up for 2 fights, but after that loss to Lara, as I said, my good word is that he has been released by PBC. And I'm not quite sure where that sort of leaves Michael. I would say he would probably most likely come back to Australia to try and relaunch his career at 30, 31, whatever it might be, with no official promoter behind him. It's going to be tough, but let's hope he can pick up the pieces of his career and move on. But not good news that PBC have released Michael Zarafa. Let's get on to the world scene. And, of course, last weekend, the big show in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, Zhilei Zhang moving to 27-2-1 with a 5th round knockout of Deontay Wilder, who fell to 43-4-1. Little bit of a sad way for Wilder to go out. There are talks or rumours that he will retire. I think so. I think he's had a good career. I think he's got the most out of himself. But last week's knockout was not great, especially on the back of that 12-round decision loss to Joseph Parker. So if it is the case that he retires, and all the best to Wilder. Zhang will move on to bigger and better things. There's word that he might be Anthony Joshua's dance partner in September, but we'll keep an eye on that one. On the undercard, Daniel Dubois also put him in line, or himself in line, for a shot at Anthony Joshua. He stopped Filip Hrgović in the 8th round. Hrgović fell to 17-1, Dubois 21-2. Really good performance by Dubois. I thought he put in a really good performance and really adapted well. He took what Hrgović had to offer early in the fight and cut him up around the eyes and got on top as the fight went on. And as I said, a very, very good win by Dubois, and it could be a big cash-in opportunity for Dubois, who could get a multi-million-dollar payday in September. So again, we'll keep an eye on who Anthony Joshua chooses. Dimitri Bivol moved to 23-0 with a 6th round stoppage of Malik Zinad, who fell to 22-1. That was for the WBA and IBO light heavyweight belts. Nick Ball got his world title after the disappointment of his last fight with a draw against Ray Vargas. He won the WBA featherweight title over Raymond Ford, who fell to 15-1-1. Nick Ball improved to 20-0-1. The scores there, 115-113 times 2 and 115-113 for Ford. Also on that undercard, Hamza Shiraz moved to 20-0 with a very impressive 11th round stoppage of Austin Ammo Williams, who fell to 16-1. And Willie Hutchison moved to 18-1 with a 12-round decision over Craig Richards, who fell to 18-4 and 18-4-1. That was for the WBC silver light heavyweight title. The score was 117-111, 116-112, and 119-109. And Frank Warren's Queensberry Promotions with a 10-0 sweep of Eddie Hearn's Matchroom Promotions. It was taken in good spirits by Eddie Hearn, but I've got a feeling he was not happy after that. But there are talks that they will do it again, maybe end of the year, if not next year. And just on the concept, Oscar De La Hoya, of course, Golden Boy Promotions, has raised the prospect of taking on Bob Arum's Top Rank Promotions in a 5x5 tournament. How good would that be? Bob Arum said, look, he's open to it, but it would have to work in the right way. Of course, they would have to have the right fighters matched up. I'm not quite sure it would work in the American system the way they are over there, they tend to have one big fight and then smaller fights on the undercard. Whether they could have 5 big fights between those two remains to be seen. So the fact that both of them have said they're open to it maybe raises the potential that might happen down the track. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Just mentioned as well, Dimitri Bivol with the big win on the undercard. His rematch with Artur Beterbiev has been rescheduled for October 12th in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Beterbiev, of course, has got the meniscus injury in his knee that he's getting over at the moment. So hopefully he'll be well recovered by then, and we get the Bivol-Beterbiev fight for the undisputed light heavyweight belt on October 12th. I mentioned before as well, as far as with Zhang and Dubois maybe being in line to fight Anthony Joshua. The other one in line for that as well is Joseph Parker. Eddie Hearn undecided on who will be the opponent for Anthony Joshua in September. You've got Dubois, the all English fighter as well. It's going to be at Wembley Stadium, so it does make a hell of a lot of sense for that fight. But on the other on the other side of the camp, of course, Zhilei Zhang, probably the harder fight if you ask me. Big guy, but he has got the potential to have the Chinese audience watching. We know they've got 1.6 billion, I think, people in China. So they get just 1% of that watching that fight. I mean, it'd be a mega, mega payday for all concerned. So does he go with the All England affair, or does he go with the fight that could potentially have more eyeballs on it? Then remains to be seen. But Eddie Hearn, he'll make the right decision for Joshua, of course. And I'm sure that fight will be announced probably within the next 4 weeks. On that undercard as well, sorry, it wasn't on the undercard. It was on the fight card before that. Alexander Usyk against Tyson Fury, of course. He has raised the possibility of actually going back down to cruiserweight. Now, we all know from an Australian point of view that Jai Apataya is the IBF champion. That would be a massive, massive fight. Could quite possibly be the biggest fight ever featuring an Australian boxer, but I'm not quite sure it makes a hell of a lot of sense. I'm sure there's always a reason behind it, but I mean, take Jai Apataya out of it, who's had who has sort of brought up that he might go to heavyweight. I'm sure he would remain at cruiserweight if this fight was a possibility, but Usyk wants to become a two-time undisputed champion. He'll be close to 40 by the time he would probably get an opportunity to do that. I'm just not quite sure why you would give up those massive mega million-dollar fights at heavyweight to go down to cruiserweight and fight for a small percentage of those paydays. And you would have to lose a lot of weight, a lot of muscle to get back down to cruiserweight. So who knows? He did raise the possibility, but I would be very, very surprised if he did go back to cruiserweight. But if he did, then that Jai Apataya fight's out there, and of course, we'd all love to see that one. The updated August 3 card in LA has been released. Still the main event, Terence Crawford, Israel Madrimov. That'll be for the WBA 154-pound title. Isaac Cruz and Jose Valenzuela has been elevated to the co-main. Andy Ruiz will fight Big Baby Miller. Another big baby on the card, Jared Anderson, will fight Martin Bacoli. David Morrell will fight Radovoji Kalajdzic, I think that's how you pronounce it. And Andy Cruz will fight Antonio Moran. Now, there is a possibility that Virgil Ortiz will still be on that card, but geez, that card suddenly, without the Tim Tszyu Virgil Ortiz fight on it, suddenly to me does not look anywhere near as appealing as it did at the start. I'm sure it'll be a great night by the promoters. Of course, the reality season card or schedule they've put together. So still a great card, but without that Tszyu Ortiz fight on it, doesn't quite look the same to me. But anyway, I'm sure if Virgil Ortiz gets on there, he might fight a Mendoza or Boachuk or one of these types of guys. Either way, should be still a great card by all concerned. This weekend, just to finish up, Xander Zayas, 18-0, will fight Patrick Teixeira this weekend in New York. It will be Teixeira. He biggest win of his career was a 12-round decision over Carlos Adames back in 2019 for the WBO interim welterweight title. Zayas is a young up-and-comer, so a really good test for him. And as I said, that's in New York and promoted by Top Rank, and it will be on ESPN. Not quite sure it's on in Australia, so maybe check your guides, or I'm sure there'll be a streaming service or two that might have that fight available. So that's about it for this week. Hope you have a great weekend watching the boxing, and we will catch you next week.